let's talk to, and this, again, this is what it says on the screen, y'all.
Yes.
We're going to talk to Prophet Daniel, pronouns he, him, calling all the way from Australia, all the way down there on the butt end of the world, who says God is not imaginary. Yeah, God is not imaginary. There is evidence for the existence of God. Prophet Daniel, do I call you Prophet or do I call you Daniel? You're on AXP with Forrest and Dan. How you doing today?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
Doing okay, as good as we can.
What's up? I've been actually watching you guys for quite some time now, so wanted to come and jump in.
I'm sorry to hear that.
My opinions.
All right. Okay. Well, you're here. You're on the air. I know you've been waiting, so this is your opportunity.
So yeah,
you got one shot.
Let's start with which God do you believe is real?
Yeah.
Look, there is one God for the entirety of existence, and the question that I have for you guys is, if a God can go on and predict world history-changing events and
I'm going to stop you right there.
Fulfilled.
Not to be too curt, but you can't ask us what we think a God can do if we don't believe in one. Sorry, we can't talk about the capabilities of things that don't exist, right?
Also, you said there is one God for all the, so I'm assuming we're talking about Zoroaster, right?
Yeah.
Now look, if a God can predict and fulfill those predictions, would that God be an imaginary God or a real divine being?
Okay, I see where you're going with this. You're trying to say that there are predictions out there that have been fulfilled that demonstrate the existence of God. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, what predictions in the Quran demonstrate that Allah is actually the one true God?
I'm actually talking about Prophet Daniel, his book, Daniel's book, and chapter 2.
Who's Prophet Daniel? Is Daniel God? Daniel is not God. I've been working with him for years, and he's a good paralegal. I don't know what your job title is.
Yeah, don't dox my title, but I'm glad you got it wrong anyway. Anyway, yeah, you're obviously referring to the book of Daniel and the Bible. Yeah. So you think that there's a Christ? Are you specifically referring to the passages that allegedly? I'm sorry for being curt. Again, we're at the tail end of the show. I'm just trying to wrap up things here. And so I know you've been waiting for a minute, but it sounds like you're going to cite the passages that allege to the Messiah figure, which is allegedly fulfilled by Jesus in the New Testament, right?
I'm specifically talking about the dream interpretation, dream narration and interpretation by Prophet Daniel.
Okay.
Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar had the dream, all right? So I'm talking about this particular dream interpretation, which goes on to be fulfilled at the grandest level in world history. It's a world history changing event, all right? So why would this be proof?
Well, I'm going to stop you right there. Because so there's basically Daniel has a bunch of dreams, and they interpret these different things in these dreams to be different civilizations. But your answer on this depends a lot, Prophet Daniel. What do these dreams interpretations mean to you? Do you think that they're referring to something happening in current events, or do you think they're referring to ancient civilizations? What are you thinking here?
Like, obviously, I assume that some of you are Bible scholars. Am I true?
Not Bible scholars, no. But we've read it and read stuff about it.
No, that's pretty much I'm a biologist. It's loud on the internet for a living. What? Okay. So I don't know the Prophet Daniel dream. I just looked it up, and what I see is it's a dream of a statue with a head of gold and arms and chest of silver. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I believe so.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, that's the dream I'm talking about. So Bible scholars agree that the dream,
go ahead.
In the dream, the gold head was the Babylonian Empire, and the silver-chested empire was the Persian Empire that subsumed the Babylonian Empire. Yes. And then you have the Macedonian king, Alexander the Great's empire, come and subsume the Persian Empire. And we know the great battle that occurred between Alexander and Darius, where Darius experienced a decisive defeat. And then all the scholars in the world, Christian scholars in the world, the Bible scholars in the world unanimously agree that Roman Empire subsumes the remainder or disintegrating Macedonian Empire, right? So Roman Empire in 1st century takes over the Holy Land, and they become the resident empire in the Holy Land, all right? And 1st century is a very critical time, and that's when the Jewish people are expecting their Messiah to come and liberate them from the Roman yoke, right? So that's the time the Messiah comes. But for the misfortune of the Jewish people themselves, they disbelieve in the Messiah, and the Messiah just, and for their own misfortune, the Roman Empire continues to become comfortable in the Holy Land because of their disbelief of the Messiah. All right. So we are now in 7th century.
Really quickly, before I let you finish your sermon.
Yeah.
Before I let you finish your sermon, I just want to understand, like, I'm going to scoot past the whole claim that scholars unanimously agree. I don't know of anything that scholars in any field unanimously agree on. That's kind of, there's an old joke that, like, a group of crows is called a murder and a group of ferrets is called a business and a group of academics is called a disagreement. And so, like, that's just, but let's assume that every Bible scholar is like, yeah, that's what that is. Just so I'm on the same page here. Did these events happen before or after the writing of this part of the Bible?
What a great question to ask, Forrest, because I happen to have the answer to that. And the answer is yes, of course they were written later as later interpretations, because Daniel has been modified and is not. So, the Daniel we have in the Old Testament is not the Daniel that was first written in the time of the original author. Isn't that interesting?
So
how that works?
So Prophet Daniel, now Prophet Daniel, if you'll let me finish my question, can you please answer for me? What do you think personally, just as you as a person, do you think it's more reasonable that the original authors of the Bible wrote this perfect thing that perfectly prophesies all these world events, and they just happened to write it in the weirdest fucking way possible, so that now in 2025 we can kind of squint our eyes at it and say that looks like this? Or do you think that maybe the fact that the Bible has been rewritten and reinterpreted and retranslated and had things added and taken out, and now all this way, thousands of years later, we can look back and figure out what the fuck they were trying to do? That kind of demonstrates that, just like any other man-made document, it's just telling a story that the authors wanted it to tell. What do you think is more reasonable?
Yeah, okay. Actually, you're getting confused. All right.
Yes.
So the book of Daniel.
I have a better question to ask. Sorry, Forrest. Not that your question isn't good, but because I know the specific context of this. Because the 4 kingdoms that are alluded to, as you're right, one of them Babylon, Persia, etc. The 4th kingdom, being the Roman Empire, is interpreted as such because of the fall of the Jewish people. The reason why that's wrong is because the 4th empire, as described, is supposed to bring about the end of the fucking world, right? It's not just the end of the Jewish people. It's literally supposed to take over the earth levels of ending of the world. And the world, as far as I know it, is still going. So that's why it's not a good prophecy. It's wrong, right?
No, hang on. Don't rush. Okay. So
we're rushing. We're already
we are rushing, to be clear.
No, okay. So the empire that should subsume and consume the Roman Empire is the rock empire, the rock that God makes, the God of heaven makes with his own hands, correct? So there you go. In 7th century, there comes Islam from the heartland of Arabia and defeats the Roman Empire, okay? It subsumes, it takes control of the Holy Land, right? So that's God's empire.
The text literally says they control the entire earth. That's not what it doesn't say. It takes over a majority landmass or just Israel. They says it takes over the entire earth. It is an apocalypse dream. It is not just.
It does say that.
Yeah.
The rock became a mountain that filled the whole world. That's the end of the trap passage that I pulled up here.
The Holy Land.
No, it doesn't say that.
To Abraham.
It doesn't say that at all.
I'm not a Bible scholar, but I've read the Bible. That's not what it says.
Open the book of Daniel 2.
I just read it. I just read it aloud. A great stone, not cut by human hands, fell to the feet of the statue and destroyed it, and the rock became a mountain that filled the whole world.
That's correct.
Not the Holy Land, the whole world.
So look, in biblical terms, the world depicts the world of Israelites, the Holy Land. That's the world for them.
Oh, okay. Well, then if the whole world just means Palestine, then I'm gonna say that the statue means fucking Megatron. Like it doesn't. Yeah. I don't know what you're saying here, dude. Like it's just you're just making excuses for something that doesn't make any goddamn sense. And as we already explained earlier on, this has been adapted in later versions to be more like the history that the authors knew already happened. So it sounds to me like you're just like real locked into this thing without thinking about it too much. I encourage you to call Deconstruction Zone, who I see is in the chat. We got Justin here next time he's on. That dude has actually read the Bible better than most people I know and can probably deal out what actually is being said here better than us. But as of right now, Prophet Daniel, the Prophet Daniel in the Bible that you're describing here is not convincing to either of us. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the call because you had your chance and you blew it. So like, we're going to move on, but I encourage you to call back with somebody who can maybe deal out the history of the Bible a little bit better.
Yep. Yeah. So your criticism is correct when talking about Daniel and some other aspects, because there's like later interpretations of messianic prophecy within Daniel. But interestingly, he's talking about the apocalypse stuff from Nebuchadnezzar's dream. I want to point out the original book of Daniel also has Daniel talking to a dragon. So there's maybe the book of Daniel isn't exactly the most reliable source of information about anything ever. But people interpret it as the Roman Empire, not even Muslims, that's a whole other thing.
Although I do want to point out that like if the rock that is created by God and is the one final truth that destroys the whole world is Islam, then you just admitted that Islam's true. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well,
at least that's what it sounded like to me.
They didn't do a great job because like Islam isn't even the majority religion in the world right now. So I don't know what happened with that. But